tons of docs on trafficking and everybody knows about trafficking.
Right.
And we started realizing that this is actually the fastest growing crime online in the world that nobody knows about.
Do you remember that time period?
Yes.
Can you start to tell the jury what happened?
I had, a friend request from this Steve Crofton guy.
Prior to that date, had you ever had contact with a Steve Crofton?
No.
For the first time in history, we're letting strangers interact with our kids in the back of our car, in their bedrooms, in their homes.
That online environment has just created this access to children that was never there before.
Hey, Maria. Hey, Steven. How are you?
Hi, doing well, thank you.
Hey, Jam, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too. Boy, I don't know where to start. I'm usually not speechless, but after watching this, it's unbelievable in so many ways. I'm curious to start with both of you on, I guess, what prompted you to get this documentary done? What was sort of the initial kind of spark that, like, hey, we need to do this and put all of our resources and hopefully get the people involved or experts in on this? What was the first kind of move that you guys made to make this happen?
So we started this conversation late in 2019, and originally it was supposed to be like a follow doc in Orange County. We were going to follow anti-human trafficking task force and document all the comings and goings of catching predators and criminals. At that point, we didn't understand the difference at all between sextortion and human trafficking, which we are now learning is a 1,000% difference in cases, with sextortion being on the higher end. And then COVID hit early in 2020, just as we were greenlighting film. So we basically had to scratch everything and start from scratch. We stayed on the East Coast. We couldn't fly to the West Coast. We couldn't travel. Nobody was vaccinated. And we started looking for a case and doing a lot of research. Steven found about 50 different documentaries on human trafficking and nothing on sextortion, nothing on online enticement. And then we started looking at the numbers and our hair just was, oh my God, what is going on? Then we reached out to DA's office and they suggested this case. We looked into that and we were shocked, completely shocked. And thankfully, Department of Justice, Homeland Security worked with us to unseal the case for us. And we went through all the files and just kind of pieced the story step by step. During COVID, it was hard, it was slow, painful, but it gave us time to research and think and really think through what we're trying to put forward in this film.
Yeah, Steven, I'm going to jump to you with that. The access you guys had, like, I'd imagine you'd have to work with authorities to get sort of the documents, these stories, because it's, I'm sure it's not out for the public, to have such information on such sensitive issues. How were you guys able to obtain and even get the trust of authorities and the people involved to come and speak? Because I imagine that's something, not only that you wouldn't want publicly known to everyone, but also to trust you guys with this, to do justice.
Yeah, no, thanks for your kind words. And, piggybacking on what Maria said, like 2 years ago, we didn't even know that sextortion was a thing. And once we started reaching out and learning, we were trying to decide, is this movie need to be made? Has anything been already done on the subject? And like Maria said, we found like tons of docs on trafficking and everybody knows about trafficking.
Right.
And we started realizing that this is actually the fastest growing crime online in the world that nobody knows about. And so when everything went sideways in the spring of 2020, we started reaching out to some friends in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we said, do you guys have anybody that works in this space? And they connected us with Elizabeth Hughes, who was the head prosecutor on the case. And they said, you got to talk about this Dan Harris case because it reads like a thriller. It's the craziest, Top Gun pilot, all these kind of things, Naval Academy graduate, all this stuff. It kind of just blew away all of our presuppositions of what this crime actually was. So when we started talking to them, they said, well, look, there's a few production companies, one in London, one in LA, that are also wanting to tell this story. But I think when they understood that Maria and myself are parents of preteen and a teen, and the reason we wanted to make this film was because we didn't know about it. all of our friends that are parents of teens didn't know about it. And we wanted to use this as a case study at a very granular level to help keep this from happening to the next kid. So that first contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office introduced us to the Commonwealth Attorney, who then introduced us to the Special Agent at Homeland Security. And we just, over a period of months, had a lot of Zooms, a lot of phone calls, and started learning the details of the case. They began to understand why we wanted to tell the film and trust us. And we were fortunate enough that Justice unsealed the case for us and sent us thousands of pages of transcripts, government documents, so that we could literally see the scale at which this crime happens and try to make that something that can, be a educational tool.
Mm-hmm. Maria, why do you think this hasn't been talked about or films haven't been made about? Because we're in such a digital age with everything, and online is, pretty much our world with phones and computers. You'd imagine these predators would use this outlet, and just, I'm curious, why hasn't this been documented more or talked about more? I know the digital age, sort of the internet age, has been around for 20 plus years, so it hasn't been that long where stuff like this has been going on, but it's long enough to see that these trends would be, unfortunately possible with the way we communicate these days.
Yeah, and it's funny that you ask, because if you just, I always say, preserve your mental health, don't do it for longer than 24 hours. But if you sign up for Google alerts for the term sextortion, your hair will stand up. You'll be like, oh my gosh, this is happening in every corner of the world, and nobody's talking about it. And why is that? And as a parent, we could sit there and talk for 45 minutes about colleges they're going to go to, or what car we're going to buy them when they turn 15, 16.
Right.
What's the safest car? That's very interesting. But this subject is such a taboo that nobody wants to talk about it. Most people don't understand the scale this crime is happening on, don't understand what the crime even is. And then they always dismiss it and say, well, that doesn't happen in our community. But then when you look at sheer numbers, 80,000 reports are made to National Center for Missing and Exploited Children daily on sextortion, online enticement, and other child abuse material. It's bizarre. It's a 1,000% difference, in the hundreds of thousands for trafficking, in the millions for how many kids are getting sextorted. It's bizarre. I think people just, don't want to talk about Bruno. They don't want to discuss that taboo subject. And I think the more we talk about it, the more educated children will become, more red flags will come to light. Because predators use silence, predators use shame as a way of keeping this victim silent. Most of these children, when they report the crime, they think they're the only one. They have no idea there are millions. And then when one person speaks up, like in the film, 300 other girls or kids are saved because they never told anybody. So it's a crime that's happening to so many, and so many are kept silent.
Stephen, one thing that kind of shocked me in a way, there's a lot that shocked me, believe that, but the thing is that these people who are working on it, they mention frequently in the film that they can't even keep up with this. And that's crazy to see. It's like we don't have enough people working on this to even track this, and it's just even overwhelming to think about, like what you said, Maria, all these incidents that happen daily to keep track of. Like, is there not enough resources or people who are kind of willing? Because I'd imagine too, being in that room and you see these people who you guys interviewed and did a great job of kind of showing the rawness of how, it's hard to watch. And I could only imagine being on a computer and doing this and discovering this. This is not a job you'd want to have, by any means. This is a tough job to just watch, because it's dealing with stuff that just emotionally heartbreaking. But why do you think we don't have enough resources and people working on it? What can happen to improve these numbers to keep up with this, to catch these people? Because if you don't have enough people working on it, then you won't get enough cases solved.
Yeah. So it's been like the most amazing thing to work with the amazing, women and men on the front lines of this. Erin Burke from Homeland Security, who's in the film, she told us, if I had every single person on my team working 24/7, 365. We literally could not keep up with the amount of cases that are coming in. And so from working with the frontline folks with Homeland, the people at the National Center, we came to a really clear realization that we simply cannot arrest ourselves out of this problem. And so we have to shift to prevention and education. Right. And so that's exactly what our goal and our desire is for the film, because it shows it in a very granular level how this crime happens. And you know, Paul Wolpert tells us all the time, you know, like, so this case was a few years ago, it was Facebook and Skype. Now tons of stuff happening on Snap, some on TikTok. And then in 5 years, it's probably going to be something we've never even heard of before. But the MO is always the same. And so because justice unsealed the case for us, word for word in the transcripts of what happened, we're actually able to educate parents and teens. This is how it happens, regardless of what the platform is. And so we realize that, yes, there needs to be more resources. Yes, law enforcement is overworked and understaffed, and all of these things are true. But if we are not showing how to keep our kids safe online, we'll never be able to get in front of this problem. And so it's our hope that, you know, documentaries, they're like empathy machines, right? So it allows you to see something in a new way, and we're often so quick to judge. But when you can see from people that are fighting the crime and those who have been victims of it, it helps us to feel in a different way and say, wow, this is something I really need to make sure that my kids and their friends don't fall victim to this. And I think hopefully the power of film is going to allow us to help to take these numbers in a different direction.
Yeah, that's well said. Maria, jumping off what Steven said there too, you know, it's kind of like throughout centuries, it's known for kids one thing, like don't talk to strangers, don't go into a stranger's car. It's kind of been, we've taught our kids that through decades. That's sort of a natural kind of thing, but this is different. This is us having to kind of check on what kids are doing on their, you know, devices and stuff like that. How can this sort of thing become from parents to kids that, you know, that message be conveyed like we would as to in person, you know, not to talk to strangers, not to someone approaches you, you have that alarm immediate thing that a child can understand and like, oh, this is a dangerous situation. How can we do this with online where it's so much more convoluted and unknown in a sense?
I think it's very convoluted. I think they don't necessarily think these people are their strangers. They think they're their friends. The definition of a friend is so different than, you know, 20 years ago when we were growing up. I mean, the National Center for Missing Exploited Children did a research, and 1 in 3 American children have best friend that they've never met in real life. But they define them as best friend because it's somebody they met online and somebody they talk online, and to them they're real friend. So we kind of have to start talking about, instead of don't talk to strangers, how you talk to strangers and what are the red flags to look for if you're talking to all these people online. And I do think we should, you know, age appropriately. Just like we're not giving a car key to a 7-year-old boy, we shouldn't be giving completely open cell phone with open profile on all the social media to 7 and 8-year-olds so they can have 1 million followers. Statistically, 1 in 10 out of those million people are predators, just pure statistics. And so we do have to educate them stage by stage and, you know, let them on this highway of internet slowly, and also understand that they're gonna be using technology. They're gonna be talking to people. So it's not don't talk to people, it's how you talk to people. It's what information you reveal about yourself. The people don't always say who they are. They lie a lot online because they are anonymous. They can create a profile that looks like somebody else and nobody will be checking, is that the real person or the person that they pretend to be. So if the kids know this red flags to look out for, I think they will keep each other safe and keep themselves safe. But I think it's education, constant conversations, definitely not a taboo subject that needs to be brought into the light. It is hidden pandemic. We, you know, titled the film on purpose because it's like a modern Me Too movement among the children, but they're not speaking out. Every single case, just like the case in this film, there is 1 victim that told and 300 that didn't. Every single case of sextortion is that. So they're suffering in silence. They don't know if somebody will listen or help them. They don't know where to go, and it's hidden. It's hidden from the public view. We want to bring it into the light, and we want to give it all the airtime that it deserves. So thank you for having us. And like honestly, like keeping this conversation going is the most important thing we can do.
Yeah, that's very well said in that case too, because you think about it, these are kids, but like we had a whole different upbringing. Just think about 20 years ago, like you mentioned, I was playing sports outside or playing with toys at age 8. I didn't know any device. I could barely turn on the video game system by then, at that age, much less like the kids are so advanced now. And I think it does begin with parenting too. There's no reason an 8-year-old should have a phone. I still believe that. You guys are parents and have kids. I don't. But like for me, it's just like I can't even imagine what an 8-year-old would need a phone for, to begin with. Like at certain age, yes, you get that. You get the driver's license stuff. But I think we should start patrolling like when a kid gets a tablet and stuff like that at certain age. And Steve, I'm going to ask you this too, because before I forget, this isn't only exclusive to this country. That's the thing with cyber, things that it's worldwide. You guys kind of documented in the film a little bit about in the Philippines and other countries this happens. How much more prominent it might be in other countries and unreported versus the US, which is, in a sense, we're a more advanced country than maybe some third world countries where there's no money or resources or parents, struggling to survive really, and families. How much of a problem is it in other countries, especially the poorer nations?
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are really scary, right? So, in 2019, so the National Center actually is the clearinghouse worldwide right now for these reports that come in. The European Union is working on creating another center for Europe to help spread the load out just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, 16 million reports were made in 2019, 21 million were made in 2020, 29 million were made in 2021. Just a couple of days ago, we were in DC with the president of the National Center on the panel, and she said we're going to pass that 29 million number this year. So it just keeps going in the wrong direction. And then if you take the, Paul Wolpert from the film, he said, he's working on a case right now. He was telling me the other day, the perpetrators in Northern Ireland, one person told, and he found 300 chat logs, with 300 unique IDs. So even the numbers are misleading, because they seem so crazy. But if it's 1 in 200 or 1 in 300 who reports, whether it be the numbers here in the US or abroad, it's just obscene. The European Union just asked us to screen the film for Parliament next month because they're trying to enact some stricter legislation for reporting, from the tech companies, and just, putting more things to help keep our kids safe online. We've also been asked by the Australian Parliament, the Dutch Parliament, the Pentagon. So the world is starting to wake up to this being a huge problem. And we're hoping that, our film's going to be a tool, the power of storytelling and the dramatic art to help illuminate these statistics, especially for lawmakers, who, may hear the numbers, but if you don't see the story, you don't realize the actual toll that this is having, not only to the kid, but to the parents and their entire circle. They're going to be dealing with it for the rest of their lives most of the time.
No question. That's I think you guys did a fantastic job just putting this documentary together with the experts you had, the statistic, the details. It's very startling when you watch it. You feel it in a sense, and it really hits you on so many accounts. So you guys did a tremendous job just bringing this topic to light, but the way you even put the documentary together was very well done on every aspect. So credit to you guys for doing that and putting it out to the world. And like you said, hopefully that starts a conversation, and the governments around the world are paying attention and also screening this, because I think that's like visually, like you mentioned, Steve, it hits you differently when you see the impact in a film form and people talking about it. It's one thing hearing about something, but when you see it from the direct people involved, it hits you differently. So you guys did a great job of illustrating that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're on a 20-city tour right now, screening the film all over the country ahead of the release, coming up next week. And every single night, I have a parent stand up during the Q&A and say almost verbatim, "Thank you for making this film. I had no idea." And so that's the thing where I feel like that it ripples out, right? So audiences are starting to be able to get to see the film. They're become aware of the problem. They can go and tell their friends and the ones in their circle, and can we take it to this school, and can we take it to this church, and this community organization. And so it's really this awareness and the prevention. We have to, kids don't want to be victimized. We think they want to be leaders in this space, right? Because they don't want to be victimized. They can help their friends not get victimized. So we're hoping that the film and some of the educational modules we're making to go along with it, can be used in schools across the country.
Well, you guys are doing great work and important work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. Appreciate it. And like I said, very well done. And it's always good to make things, and you guys should be proud of things that, hopefully can make a change or save someone, in that essence. So that's powerful filmmaking right there.
Thanks, Tim. And thanks for letting us, put this out to your audience, and for your audience, the way you can help us is go to sextortionfilm.com. You'll see the pre-order link is there. We made it as inexpensive as you can make it on iTunes. So it's only $10 for the film, and all the profits are going to nonprofits that are working to help keep our kids safe online. The film comes out on 10/4. That's an easy one to remember for a law enforcement film. And we're super excited to see if we can start turning the tide on this.
Well said. Thanks so much, guys. This was really great.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.